giant octopus attacks ships in the ocean and kills everyone on board. 3 years later, a box from one of the sunken ships comes back to the surface. Inside is a small octopus that's still alive. When a father joins a team to steal diamonds from a cargo ship, the monster follows them. The horror begins somewhere in the vast ocean, where a massive tentacled creature rises from the depths to attack a fishing boat. The ship's crew has no idea what's coming for them. Inside the vessel, a woman is taking a shower, somehow managing to keep all her makeup perfect despite being at sea. This peaceful moment doesn't last long. Without warning, the gigantic monster launches its powerful tentacles toward the entire crew. The attack is swift and brutal. The creature's tentacles smash through the boat, sending people flying through the air like insects. The tremendous damage spreads throughout the vessel as the beast tears everything apart with unstoppable force. The shower room becomes one of the first casualties. The woman runs outside immediately as the walls collapse around her, but the rest of the crew isn't so lucky. One by one, they're torn apart by the raging monster's tentacles. The boat begins sinking rapidly into the dark ocean waters. In desperation, the woman decides to jump off the sinking structure, still wearing her surprisingly indestructible bathrobe. But her escape attempt fails completely. The massive creature devours her like a giant dumpling, swallowing her whole. Within minutes, the entire vessel disappears beneath the mysterious ocean waters, leaving no trace of the tragedy that just occurred. 3 years pass after this terrible incident. Life on the ocean continues as if nothing happened. One day, a black box suddenly resurfaces on top of the water beside another shipping boat. The sailors working on this vessel quickly retrieve the mysterious object onto their deck, acting like simpletons who have no idea about the danger stored inside the container. At the same time, a young boy named June notices what the crew has just discovered. He decides to tell his sister Belle, who is busy keeping inventory of a precious gem inside the ship's safe. The valuable stone represents their most important cargo, and Belle takes her responsibility seriously. The siblings rush toward the other sailors immediately to see what they found. When they reach the group, they discover that the entire crew is gathered around the black box, trying to examine its contents. Inside, they find what appears to be a dead octopus creature, and the sailors think it would make excellent food. One of the sailors decides to treat the creature like giant sushi. However, just before the man can devour the animal, something unexpected happens. The octopus creature suddenly comes to life and launches itself directly into the person's mouth, causing the human to choke violently on the ground. The other crew members try to help immediately, but they quickly realize something is terribly wrong. Monster tentacles start shooting out from the victim's mouth, creating a horrifying scene. The sight of this mutation causes all the workers to run for their lives in panic. Belle sees that the sailor is being choked and controlled by the mutating creature. Despite the obvious danger, she tries to rescue the person by pulling the tentacles away from his mouth. This heroic attempt only makes things worse for everyone involved. Belle's intervention causes her to become the next victim instead. The creature grabs onto her and begins what can only be described as a terrible French kissing attack. Belle falls to the ground as the monster's DNA begins altering her body at the cellular level. The infection spreads through her system, though she doesn't realize the full extent of what's happening to her yet. Meanwhile, in a nearby city, the main character named Zong is struggling with his own problems. He runs a small food stand and barely manages to pay his bills each month. Money is always tight, and he constantly worries about providing for his family. His brother-in-law, Lao, believes they can change their financial situation very soon. Lao has been looking for opportunities to make quick money, and he thinks he's found the perfect solution to their problems. The two men go to a sushi restaurant where Zong focuses mainly on feeding his young daughter. During their meal, Lao reveals that he knows about a job that pays a lot of money. However, this job requires someone with extensive military experience, which Zong happens to have. This information makes Zong suspicious immediately. He thinks that Lao's job must be illegal in nature, given the high pay and military requirements. However, their conversation gets interrupted when Zong's daughter starts coughing severely, revealing that the girl has a very serious illness. With no other choice available, the two men quickly rush toward the nearby hospital. As they drive, Zong begins having painful flashbacks of his wife. He remembers when they were also rushing toward an emergency room not so long ago, when she was still alive. The memories are particularly painful because he recalls their last fight about their financial situation. During that argument, while driving to the hospital, Zong crashed into an incoming truck. The accident ultimately led to the unfortunate death of his wife, leaving him to raise their sick daughter alone. These memories make Zong realize that he cannot lose his daughter as well. The man has no choice but to accept Lao's offer for the dangerous job, despite his moral reservations about what it might involve. Back on the ship with the octopus monster, June has managed to survive the initial attack alongside the captain. However, the sailor eventually decides to confront the giant creature responsible for killing his crew members. His anger overcomes his fear as he seeks revenge. The captain rushes toward the kitchen with determination and sees that the monster is still inside the room. This gives him the opportunity to attack the enemy right away. He grabs a large knife and manages to cut off one of the creature's tentacles. However, before the captain can finish the kill, the sea creature quickly grabs onto the human's arm. The monster completely overpowers the captain, dragging him across the floor with ease. The man realizes he's been completely outmatched by this supernatural enemy. The captain tries to run immediately, but the creature grabs him again with its remaining tentacles. He tries desperately to pull away from the giant monster, fighting for his life with everything he has. Before the captain can break free from the creature's grip, he notices that June is standing right behind the door, watching the entire fight. This causes the captain to shout for the boy to run away immediately. In his final act of heroism, the captain sacrifices himself to give June a chance to escape from the monster. During this same time, Belle manages to regain consciousness after her encounter with the smaller octopus. She stumbles toward the cargo container, trying to hide inside the safe where the precious gem is stored. However, she's clearly feeling the after effects of her close encounter with the tentacle monster. What's even worse, Belle starts to realize that something is very wrong with her body. The creature has left something growing in her stomach after their brief but traumatic encounter. She doesn't fully understand what's happening yet, but she knows it's not normal. On the other side of the ocean, Zong is heading toward his new job while being accompanied by a group of mercenaries hired by Lao. As they travel, Zong quickly realizes that something is wrong when he sees boxes of weapons inside their boat. This discovery causes Zong to become furious. He realizes that Lao is planning to commit robbery with these guns, and the main character immediately refuses to proceed with any criminal activity. He wants nothing to do with armed theft. Lao quickly reveals the truth about their mission. He's planning to steal the expensive gem from Belle's boat, and he reminds Zong that this is the only way to make enough money for his daughter's life-saving surgery. This emotional manipulation forces Zong to back down in silence, despite his moral objections. Very soon, the group reaches an area filled with mysterious fog. They eventually arrive at their targeted boat, but they're unable to contact the people inside using any of their radio equipment. The ship appears to be completely dead. This gives them no other choice but to climb onto the vessel with their weapons like modern pirates. They're planning to take over the entire boat by force, expecting to fight the crew for the valuable cargo. However, the team is surprised to discover that the ship appears to be completely abandoned. There are no crew members visible anywhere, and the entire vessel seems eerily quiet. The mercenaries eventually manage to find a way inside the ship. As they carefully move through the hallways, they're shocked to find large amounts of blood on the floors and walls. This evidence indicates that serious violence must have occurred here recently, but they have no idea what caused it. What the invaders don't realize is that the tentacle monster is already aware of their presence. The creature slowly approaches the mercenary guard stationed outside the ship. It moves silently through the water, preparing to attack the unsuspecting men. The monster manages to scare one of the guards, knocking him onto his back. The other guard remains completely unaware of the danger approaching them from the dark waters below. Soon enough, the second guard notices that his friend has somehow disappeared without explanation. This causes him to investigate immediately, but he quickly realizes in shock that they're being attacked by a massive tentacle that's much bigger than anything human. The man begins running desperately in the opposite direction, but he's quickly captured by the monster. The creature strangles him to death with its horrific tentacles, eliminating the outside guards with ease. At the same time inside the ship, Lao has decided to split up with Zong to cover more ground in their search for the valuable gem. Belle is also getting out from her hiding place in the cargo container when she immediately hears the incoming mercenaries rushing in her direction. This causes her to hide behind the walls, trying to avoid detection. However, she's soon discovered by the armed men and held hostage at gunpoint. They demand that she reveal the location of the precious stone immediately. With no other choice available, Belle decides to cooperate with the criminals. She agrees to bring them toward the cargo container where the gem is stored, but she claims that she needs a special password card to open the secure gates. According to her, this access card is located inside the ship's navigation room. Very soon, the mercenaries bring Belle toward the second floor of the vessel. They rush inside the navigation room immediately, searching for the password card inside every cabinet and drawer they can find. However, they don't manage to find the object anywhere in the room. This causes the mercenaries to threaten Belle once again. They realize that she has been lying to them this whole time, trying to waste their time and possibly alert others to their presence. Their angry conversation gets quickly interrupted by a loud noise coming from inside a metal container on the floor. Lao hears this disturbance and decides to investigate by opening the container doors. Inside, they discover that Belle's younger brother June has managed to survive the octopus attack as well. This revelation allows the mercenaries to use the boy as a bargaining chip, forcing Belle to help them steal the precious stone or watch her brother get hurt.
到底怎么回事？
On the other side of the ship, Zong and his team have arrived inside the vessel's kitchen area. They find even more of the sticky liquid substances that indicate the monster's presence, but before they can investigate further, they receive orders from their boss to return to the navigation room immediately. However, before the men can leave the kitchen area, they quickly realize that something is terribly wrong. A massive tentacle covered with sharp teeth appears behind one of their friends, grabbing the man and pulling him directly toward the ceiling. This causes the remaining people to fire their weapons immediately at the creature. However, the monster manages to avoid most of the bullets by hiding inside the air ventilation system, while trying to ambush the humans from different angles. Luckily, Zong is able to repel the enemy by using a flame torch as a weapon. This gives the surviving team members a chance to run for their lives toward the exit. But before the humans can escape from the kitchen area, they quickly realize that the monster is already waiting for them on the other side of the room. With no other choice available, the team decides to back away slowly while hoping to hide their presence from the flesh-eating tentacle creature. However, the giant monster seems determined to capture the humans as it continues probing every corner of the room with its tentacles. The creature's terrifying presence eventually causes the people to panic, which alerts the giant monster to their exact location. This forces the humans to run away from the kitchen immediately in a desperate attempt to escape. However, one of the larger team members is obviously lacking proper cardiovascular fitness. He quickly falls behind the group while begging for help from his companions. Unfortunately, he gets pulled away by the creature like a human hamburger before anyone can save him. This sacrifice allows the other people to escape successfully. They manage to slam the kitchen door in front of the monster just in time to prevent it from following them further. Very soon, the survivors make it back toward the navigation room where the others are waiting. They immediately tell the group about what happened in the kitchen, but Lau has trouble believing their seemingly crazy story about a giant tentacle monster. Even when Belle confirms the existence of the creature, Lau remains skeptical about the threat they're facing. However, before the people can finish their discussion, they get interrupted by loud noises coming from the windows around them. The group is shocked to see multiple tentacles appearing outside the navigation room. The massive appendages have completely surrounded the humans from all sides, trapping them inside the room. It's quickly revealed that the gigantic octopus is positioned directly on top of their current location. Before the people can back away from the windows, several tentacles break through the glass and begin killing the humans in horrific ways. This causes everyone to fire all their guns while trying desperately to hold the monster back from entering the room. However, the bullets don't seem to be very effective against the creature's thick hide and regenerative abilities. Luckily, before all the people can be killed by the monster, Zong quickly grabs a flare gun from the emergency supplies. He fires the bright flare directly into the monster's mouth, which causes enough pain and distraction to allow the survivors to escape immediately from the navigation room. However, while everyone is rushing down the stairs to escape, young June accidentally falls between the metal grating and the floor. This allows the tentacle monster to quickly appear behind the fleeing group once again. Surprisingly, the giant creature refuses to attack Belle, who is infected with its offspring. This strange behavior gives Zong the chance to grab an emergency axe from the wall. He rushes forward to strike the monster furiously, forcing it to retreat temporarily from their location. This allows the people to quickly escape from the dangerous area. They eventually catch up with the other mercenaries who are also trying to flee from the monster's attacks throughout the ship. Very soon, the entire group manages to make it toward the cargo area where the valuable gem is stored. However, instead of leaving immediately with their lives, Lau demands that Belle open the safe containing the precious stone. He refuses to return home empty-handed after coming so far. Zong sees this greed and tries to stop his brother-in-law from making a dangerous mistake. However, he gets forced away at gunpoint by the other mercenaries, who support Lau's decision to complete their theft despite the obvious dangers. The armed men bring Belle toward the cargo container and force her to open the security lock immediately. This gives the woman no other choice but to comply with their demands, as they're threatening to hurt her younger brother if she refuses. Belle eventually brings the mercenaries inside the location where the gem is stored. The criminals are finally able to retrieve the precious object they came here to steal. However, their moment of triumph gets quickly interrupted by something horrifying behind them. The group is shocked to see numerous human bodies kneeling on the ground throughout the cargo hold. Each person has strange foreign objects protruding from their mouths, making them look like zombies. It turns out that the octopus monster has been using these people as hosts to give birth to its offspring. The creature implants its eggs inside human bodies, using them as living incubators for the next generation. Belle realizes that she must be pregnant with the monster's babies as well, after her earlier encounter with the smaller octopus. Before the people can leave the cargo area with their stolen gem, Lau gets quickly attacked by the monster from behind. This causes all the humans to fire their guns at the gigantic octopus, but this only manages to make the creature even more angry and aggressive. Very soon, the massive sea monster throws Lao toward the metal walls with tremendous force. This impact causes him to drop the valuable gem, but the mercenaries are forced to retreat immediately as they rush toward the exit door. Zong sees this chaos and quickly decides to sprint inside the cargo container alongside Belle and June. However, he eventually realizes that the monster has no intentions of leaving this area where its breeding operation is located. With no other choice available, the people decide to hide inside a smaller container temporarily. While they're trapped together, Belle takes the opportunity to use her clothing to help bandage Zong's injuries from the recent fighting. However, their intimate moment gets quickly interrupted by the mercenaries talking through their radio communication system. Lao promises to come back for a rescue mission, but he also orders Zong to retrieve the dropped diamond during the process. Very soon, the mercenaries charge out from their hiding spots and begin shooting their guns to distract the monster's attention. This allows Zong to quickly grab the valuable gem before rushing away from the giant creature's reach. Unfortunately, this diversion strategy also gives the monster the opportunity to kill one of the surviving mercenaries. The remaining people try desperately to hold back the creature while their friend gets devoured. Zong sees this sacrifice and quickly grabs a gas container from the emergency supplies. He throws it directly toward the massive octopus while allowing Lao to fire his gun toward the metal canister. This creates a huge explosion that finally injures the monster significantly. The explosion gives the people a chance to run away from the cargo area. They eventually escape into another room and quickly lock the door behind them. However, the survivors soon realize that the other exit from this room has been locked as well, trapping them inside. Things become even worse when Belle begins hearing the tentacle monster's presence approaching their location. The creature starts knocking on the door furiously, trying to break through their defenses to get inside the room. Realizing that they're in terrible danger with no escape routes available, Zong eventually finds another way out through the ventilation system on the ceiling. He quickly tells the others to escape through the air ducts while he tries to hold back the monster on the other side of the door. This allows Belle and June to climb inside the ventilation system immediately. They begin crawling through the narrow metal pathway, and Belle eventually notices that Zong is able to make it inside the ducts as well. However, the group quickly notices that something is wrong. The giant tentacle finally breaks through the metal door, destroying their previous hiding place. The monster begins hunting the humans through the ventilation system like prey. The survivors sense the immediate danger and try to move as quietly as possible through the ducts. However, the monster suddenly breaks into the ventilation system as well, causing the mercenaries to rush away like cowards. Belle sees this new threat and immediately turns to go the other way with her brother June. However, the creature eventually causes the crawl space to collapse behind them, separating the siblings from Zong by completely blocking the air duct entrance. With no other choice available, Zong is forced to continue in the opposite direction. He eventually catches up to the surviving mercenaries while they're rushing toward the outside of the ship. However, he's clearly hesitant about leaving Belle and June behind to face the monster alone. Very soon, the mercenaries manage to return to their own boat where they originally came from. Lao quickly decides that they must escape from this dangerous location right away, taking their stolen gem and leaving the monster ship behind. However, Zong refuses to abandon Belle and June. He realizes that his friends are probably still alive inside the monster-infested ship, and he cannot leave them to die. This causes him to rush back immediately toward the cargo vessel, even though his brother-in-law has decided to abandon the rescue mission. What Lao doesn't realize is that his mercenary companions are actually planning to betray him and steal the precious stone for themselves. They secretly grab their weapons and strike Lao on the head, taking away the valuable diamond as well. Surprisingly, instead of giving up after this betrayal, Lao quickly retaliates against the traitors. He manages to get back the gem through violence, before rushing outside to escape from the treacherous mercenaries. However, they continue attacking him relentlessly from behind. Lao manages to stab one opponent in the chest and kick the enemy away from him. However, he immediately gets confronted by the second mercenary, who quickly stabs him with a knife as well. Despite being wounded, Lao manages to knock this enemy away and throw the mercenary across the boat's deck. He then strangles the person using all his remaining strength, eventually killing the traitor as a result of their greed. Despite finally defeating both attackers, Lao collapses from his bleeding injuries. He eventually dies alongside his greedy companions, becoming another victim of the cursed diamond. At the same time, back on the cargo ship, Belle and her brother June are finally able to escape from the collapsed ventilation system. However, Belle quickly begins feeling unwell as her body continues mutating from the octopus infection. What's even worse, the girl eventually grabs a kitchen knife from nearby supplies. She slowly approaches her brother like a walking zombie, which terrifies June completely. However, it turns out that Belle is only trying to make a weapon to protect them both from the tentacle monster. She's not trying to hurt her brother, but rather preparing to defend him from the creature that's still hunting them. What they don't realize is that the monster is quickly approaching their current location. However, Zong manages to find the siblings just in time, and Belle embraces him with relief when he appears. Before the survivors can leave this dangerous area, they discover the black box that originally surfaced alongside the smaller octopus. Zong decides to play the video recording inside the device to find out the truth about what they're facing. The recording reveals that the giant octopus was actually a failed experiment from a secret laboratory. The scientists eventually lost control of their created monsters, which means that there are many more of these creatures living inside the ocean depths. This revelation causes the people to realize that they must leave immediately. They try desperately to escape from the giant cargo ship and eventually make it toward the outside deck area. However, the monster quickly manages to locate the escaping humans. It attacks Zong and knocks him away like a flying ragdoll, sending him crashing into the ship's metal structures. Belle sees her friend getting hurt and rushes forward to stab the giant creature furiously with her makeshift knife weapon. She then quickly runs toward the emergency lifeboats to escape from the monster with her brother. Surprisingly, instead of escaping together with Belle and June, Zong makes a heroic decision. He tells the woman to take care of his daughter back in the city as he lowers their lifeboat toward the ocean below. He plans on fighting the monster all by himself to ensure their escape. Zong begins luring the creature away from his friends while the tentacles follow him closely throughout the ship. This eventually causes the giant octopus to launch itself out from the boat's interior, emerging onto the deck for a final confrontation. The monster tries desperately to catch and devour Zong, but he manages to dodge its attacks while barely avoiding being crushed like a human pancake by the massive enemy. Very soon, Zong manages to leap away from the sinking cargo ship and into the ocean waters below. However, the giant monster quickly drops into the water as well, continuing its relentless pursuit of the human. Zong realizes that Belle and June are still in danger as the massive octopus begins heading toward their lifeboat instead of focusing on him. This causes him to begin taunting the tentacle monster, pointing his gun and firing directly at the creature's head. This strategy works perfectly. Zong manages to make the sea creature charge toward his direction instead of pursuing the escaping boat with Belle and June inside. What the monster doesn't realize is that Zong is planning to sacrifice himself using explosive charges. The brave father dives under the ocean's surface while swimming directly toward the mutated creature with his bombs ready. Very soon, Zong manages to arm the explosives as he eventually enters the monster's gigantic mouth. He swims directly into the creature's throat before causing a huge explosion that completely destroys the sea monster from the inside. The massive blast obliterates the octopus into millions of pieces, finally ending its reign of terror. This heroic sacrifice allows Belle and June to escape from the area safely in their lifeboat. However, June quickly realizes that something is very wrong with his sister after their escape. The boy watches in shock and horror as Belle begins transforming into something monstrous right in front of his eyes. The octopus eggs that were implanted in her body during the initial infection are finally hatching. Belle's human form starts changing as the creature's offspring take control of her body, continuing the cycle of horror that began with the original monster. The movie ends with this terrifying transformation, suggesting that the nightmare is far from over. Even though the giant octopus has been destroyed, its legacy lives on through the infected humans who will spread the creature's influence to new victims.